In Salesforce, there are two different types of actions you can configure. In terms of global actions, which appear sort of up here in the global action menu, or object specific actions, which will appear on often a record detail page. So when you are wanting to add a new action, you need to, for an object that is, you need to enter Salesforce setup by clicking into the cog icon or the gear icon in the right hand corner and clicking setup. And then you want to enter the object manager and then navigate to the object that you want to add a new action to. On the left-hand menu, you'll see buttons, links, and actions. And this is where we create new buttons, new actions that we can then configure on the page layout. The confusing thing about buttons and actions is that in many cases on the user interface, they appear the same. So you trigger actions using buttons, but you don't set them up as buttons. So you'll see that when you select buttons, links, actions, there's two options here: create a new action or create a button or a link. And if I was to create a new action, you can see that different types of action types. So I've got create record, send an email, log a call, trigger a custom component, or trigger a screen flow, which is a very common one. Whereas if I select new button, there are multiple types of buttons, but they're typically things where you might enter a URL or some other formula. So basically, the best way that I've found to think about it is that a button will sort of take you somewhere else quickly and efficiently, whereas an action will actually do something within Salesforce: create a record, update a record, trigger a screen flow. So that's the best way I've found to think about them, because they can be a bit confusing. So even if you've created an action, you will then have a button for it that you add to the page layout. Likewise, if you create a button, you then trigger that. So in this case, we're going to talk about creating actions and object specific actions. I've got a separate video about global actions if you want to learn more about those as well. And in this case, I'm going to create a simple action that triggers a screen flow. So this is a Salesforce Trailhead Playground org. It came with a few screen flows preset. So I'm just going to select one of those for example's sake, but I'm not actually sure what it does. It's just for educational purposes. So I'm going to look for action type, and I'm going to select flow, which means screen flow. So only screen flows will appear here. And I'm going to say pay now with products. Don't know what that means. And then standard label, I'm going to select none because I don't need one. Say trigger flow action, just so we know what it is. Name, description, not worried about. Now save. So now we've created the action, and our next task is to then add it to the page layout so we can see it. So we're going to go back to our object manager, back to the opportunity object, and we'll open the page layouts, go to the opportunity layout. So now if we click here in mobile and lightning actions, we should be able to see our new trigger flow action. So there's the new action we created, and we just need to add that to our page layout. So if I drag that down to the mobile and lightning experience actions, I want to see it right at the front of the queue. I'm going to save that change. So if we now go back to the opportunity view, this is how it was looking prior to that. If I do a hard refresh just to sort of reset the cache, we should then see our new action that we've created appear on the object page layout of the record detail page. So now we have trigger flow action. So if I click on that, it then starts that screen flow. And you can do the same thing in adding that. Obviously it doesn't work, that doesn't matter. The point was to show you the button. You could also add buttons to sort of related lists and things like that, but that is a simple overview. So keep in mind the difference between actions and buttons. Even though actions are then set up as buttons, they're just typically designed to do something and perform an action within Salesforce, whereas a button, a typical button or a button by default, is often designed to take you. Hope that helps.